A bitter wind cut through the small auto repair shop on the edge of town. Inside, grease-stained hands worked carefully over a pile of scrap metal and broken parts. The hands belonged to Ethan, a mechanic whose life had been defined by struggle. He never had much, barely enough to pay rent, barely enough to eat, but he always carried something wealth could never buy, a heart that couldn't look away from someone in need. One rainy afternoon, a black limousine broke down outside his shop. Ethan, without hesitation, rushed out into the storm to help. He didn't know then that inside the car sat Mr. Harrison, a powerful billionaire, and his young daughter Amelia, whose bright eyes carried a deep sadness. Amelia had been paralyzed from the waist down after a tragic accident. Her world had shrunk to a wheelchair, and her father's immense wealth had not been able to buy her a cure. Ethan fixed the limousine for free, refusing payment despite Mr. Harrison's insistence. But as he worked, his eyes kept wandering toward Amelia, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the ground as though she had forgotten what hope even felt like. Later that night, lying on his thin mattress in his one-room apartment, Ethan couldn't shake her face from his mind. He remembered how her wheelchair seemed bulky, cold and lifeless, like a cage on wheels. He thought to himself, if money can't help her, maybe kindness can. So with nothing but old scrap metal, discarded bicycle chains, and the stubborn determination of a man who had little else, Ethan began building something different. Night after night, after his long shifts, he hammered, welded, and stitched. His neighbors thought he was crazy. But Ethan wasn't just building a machine. He was building a chance for Amelia to feel free again. Weeks later, with dark circles under his eyes and calloused hands nearly raw, Ethan rolled the finished wheelchair into the sunlight. It wasn't ordinary. It was light, flexible, and fitted with special support braces he designed from studying medical manuals at the public library. He didn't know if it would work, but he prayed it would. He walked up to the billionaire's mansion gates, hesitant, nervous, and told the guards he had something for Amelia. At first they laughed. Who was this poor mechanic with dirty boots and patched clothes, claiming to offer what the world's best doctors couldn't? But Amelia's eyes lit up when she saw him, and she begged her father to let her try. Reluctantly, Mr. Harrison agreed. As Ethan adjusted the straps and gently guided her into the new chair, silence filled the room. Everyone held their breath. Amelia gripped the sidebars, pushed slightly, and then something happened no one expected. The chair's support braces shifted perfectly, giving her enough lift and balance. For the first time in years, Amelia's legs trembled, and then straightened. Step by step, shaky, small but real, she walked forward. Her little feet touched the marble floor as tears rolled down her cheeks. Her father dropped to his knees, stunned, his hands shaking as he whispered, "My God, she's walking!" The staff gasped, some even crying, as Ethan stood frozen, too humble to move, afraid he was dreaming. But Amelia wasn't dreaming. She turned to him, threw her arms around his grease-stained shirt, and whispered, "You gave me my life back." Mr. Harrison, a man used to buying the world, realized that day something priceless had come from the poorest man in the room. He tried to pay Ethan a fortune, but Ethan shook his head. "Sir, I don't need money. Just promise me she'll never stop believing she can do more than what the world tells her." The billionaire nodded, tears in his eyes. From that day on, Ethan was no longer just a mechanic. He became a part of their family, a man who taught them that the greatest riches are not found in bank accounts, but in hearts that choose compassion over comfort. And Amelia, she never stopped walking. With each step, she carried not just her own strength, but the kindness of a stranger who believed in her when no one else could. Because sometimes the smallest hands can lift the heaviest burdens. And sometimes the poorest man can give the richest gift. The sun was setting as Ethan left the mansion that evening. His clothes were still stained with oil, his boots still worn, but something inside him had shifted. He had walked in, carrying only a chair built from scraps, and walked out knowing he had given a young girl hope where even wealth had failed. Mr. Harrison watched him go from the balcony, his daughter's laughter echoing in the halls for the first time in years. He realized that all the money in the world couldn't compare to the gift of selfless humanity. Ethan didn't expect fame or fortune, but word spread quickly. Doctors wanted to study his design. Families of children with disabilities reached out to him. Suddenly, the man who had once struggled to keep his shop open was being asked to build more, not for profit, but for lives that needed change. And Amelia, every day she grew stronger. Each shaky step turned into a confident stride. She sent Ethan letters filled with drawings of her standing, walking, even running. At the bottom of every page, in a child's handwriting, she always wrote, "Thank you for believing in me." Ethan kept those letters close, tucked in his old toolbox. To him, they were worth more than gold. He'd learned that true wealth isn't measured by what you keep, but by what you give. And though he remained a simple mechanic, in the eyes of those he helped, he had built something far greater than machines. He had built hope, because sometimes miracles don't come from palaces or laboratories. Sometimes they are born in a small garage, from the hands of a poor man with nothing to give but love.